Welcome in, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's webinar is titled Powerful Partnerships, Schools and After-School and Summer Programs Together for Student Recovery and Success. We have a really exciting couple of panels for you today. And again, thank you so much for joining us. We will begin right at the hour. And until that time, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. As a reminder, the default setting is just to all panelists. Just to encourage more dialogue and conversation between all of our attendees, we ask that you switch that setting to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see and engage with your comment. As a reminder, this is being recorded and will be sent to you by email as a registered guest, as well as all the resources shared in today's presentation. Finally, we are expecting to reach our webinar room capacity. If you have a colleague or know someone interested in watching this, they are still able to join us, even if they are the 501st person. We will be streaming this live on our Facebook page, and that link will be has already been entered into the chat box and will be shared repeatedly throughout. So just encourage them to watch it on Facebook. We also have folks monitoring that and are able to engage with comments and questions as they come up. Thank you again. We'll be starting shortly after at the hour. Thank you again for everyone for joining us for Powerful Partnerships. Just a few quick housekeeping notes before we get started here. First of all, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. Please switch your settings to all panelists and attendees before you do, so that everyone can engage with your comment. We will be recording today's session and we'll be sharing this in an email to all of our registered attendees within 48 hours of the conclusion of this. And also, we are expecting the room to reach capacity. If you do have a friend or colleague interested in watching this live, we are also posting this to our Facebook live stream as well as AASA's Facebook live stream. That link will be shared in the chat box throughout today's presentation. And so feel free to encourage other folks who may be interested to check us out over there. Thank you.
Right. Good morning, good noon, and good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you are in our country. I'm Jody Grant with the Afterschool Alliance, and it is my honor and pleasure to welcome you all to our webinar, Powerful Partnerships, Schools and Afterschool and Summer Programs Together for Student Recovery and Success. And of course, I want to quickly turn it over to my co-host so that we can showcase partnerships front and center. Dan.
Thank you very much, Jody. I'm Dan Dominich, and I'm the Executive Director of AASA, the School Superintendents Association. We represent our school superintendents nationwide, and this is a great opportunity to talk to them and to share with you how important it's going to be at this point in time to create the kinds of partnerships between our schools and our after schools program in order to be able to realize the gains that students will need as a result of what's happened this past year. So it's great that we have a chance to come together and share this information with you today. So Jody, let me turn it back to you.
Great. So I thought we should start by listening to the very voices that this is all about, our children and youth, and we're going to kick it off with a video.
I am part of the robotics team. What I love about it is the fact that I get to work with a lot of people.
I've always had a passion for public speaking, for advocacy, and speech and debate gave me the access to do just that.
I feel like the most meaningful part of my after-school program would probably be the sense of community and family.
They're in a more safe environment where they can still be with friends and talk and have a fun time.
My after-school program has been very important. It gives us a hint of normal life before the pandemic.
Just that little time with those activities just really takes that stress away.
It just keeps us on our toes and keeps our minds working.
Even though it's 1 hour, it gives me hope that I'm not going to be alone for very much longer.
After-school programs gave me the ability and the opportunity to do the things that we've always been told that we're too small to do.
Tatar has been trying to help us achieve something that we wouldn't normally achieve.
They want to help you. They want you to be happy. It's a place where you can feel comfortable being who you are. That's something really great that I think a lot of people would benefit from.
After-school programs are vital and important, and we need funding to make sure that it can be sustainable for all.
Well, I hope you're all as inspired as I am by our youth and their voices, because they truly are the experts on where we need to go. And one of the reasons I'm so excited to be here with all of you today is because we have an extraordinary opportunity to do something significant and special for all of our kids that can really change the way we think about learning going forward. And now more than ever, after more than a year for many of our kids doing virtual learning, being socially isolated, through partnerships, we can come back better and stronger and do just some wonderful things for our kids, our families, and our communities. As many of you know, the American Rescue Plan has 121, almost $122 billion that are set aside for education. And within those dollars, there are significant dollars that can go to support partnerships between schools and after-school and summer learning programs to really holistically support our kids. And one of the things I really want you to think about is how your community-based organizations, the places in your community that already have relationships with our children, can be part of that recovery. We're really grateful that the U.S. Department of Education has recognized that none of us can do this alone, that we are stronger together as partners, and has explicitly been talking about partnerships with after-school and summer learning programs in all of their briefings around the new American Rescue Plan and where it can go. Next slide. So within the American Rescue Plan, which is the COVID bill that just passed, there is a set aside of almost $30 billion that can be used for after school and summer learning and partnerships with schools. So for the state education departments, for those of you at the state level, there's $8.45 billion that is set aside for recovery. And in those recovery dollars, it explicitly talks about after school and summer learning programs as ways that we can help our kids get back on track and accelerate learning and academic learning, but also very much so social emotional learning. There's also a set aside, so that's 5%. There's a 1% set aside specifically for after school enrichment and a 1% set aside specifically for summer learning. And in all these cases at the state level, it's really an opportunity to identify some of the partners and communities that may not be getting money at the local level and really funnel some of those resources to those communities in need. And then, of course, at the local level, there's a lot more money coming down to school districts, and school districts have been told that 20% of their dollars need to go to address learning loss. And again, after school summer learning programs have been explicitly mentioned as ways to address learning loss. And we would rather say, you know, accelerate student recovery and really provide some of that holistic approach that we can, partnering with schools to hit all of the needs of our students. So this is going forward. We're going to have two tremendous panels for you to really talk about the possibilities and practical examples of partnerships that schools can have with community-based organizations as early as this summer, building upon existing relationships that are already there in the community and really giving us a chance to build something that can then go into the fall, the next summer, the next fall. And as you know, these dollars can be used for the next 3 to 4 years. One of the big questions that I really do want to flag for you is, as we go through this, why partner? Why not have schools do all of this alone? And the answer is because we are going to be so much stronger leveraging each other's work, and all of the research that we've done showcases that when schools work with community-based organizations and other outside partners, it leads to increased student success. And given what our kids have been through, we can't expect our schools and our teachers to do it all alone. So relying on the evidence, which is strong, which we have for you, these partnerships can help us provide a wealth of resources and opportunities and caring adults to our kids. I also just want to flag for those of you that are with community-based organizations, after school programs, a huge thank you, because one of our strengths is we have been continuing to look out for our kids and our families throughout this pandemic. I know that you have been doing porch visits, video check-ins, making sure kids are okay, making sure that they have their lessons plans. And I think those real, true connections are one of the things that are going to make it easier for us to get kids to come back and to learn again. And I think that, we absolutely want to make sure as we look at this huge opportunity with the resource dollars coming in from the American Rescue Plan, that we funnel it into people and organizations in the community that can have long-standing relationships with our children and youth that exist long after these COVID dollars are gone. So, that's why we're here today. As you saw, we have a great panel of experts coming up. But before we turn it over to them, I wanted you to hear from one of the best experts out there. Dan, please let us know what you're thinking about all of this.
Well, thank you, Jody. And yeah, that's a great presentation. And in the Q&A already, I saw a question basically asking that the district that whoever wrote this is looking forward to working with has pretty much indicated that they intend to do all this work by themselves. That is not the correct approach. If we talk about accelerated learning, what we're talking about is using time beyond when the children are in school for these children to learn. The summer is a perfect opportunity for that. After school is a perfect opportunity for that. Vacation periods is a perfect opportunity for that. And there is money that's specifically dedicated for that kind of support and that kind of work in the American Rescue Plan. So districts need to take advantage of that and to take advantage of the time beyond the school day to accelerate learning for their students. You're going to hear today from two superintendents who acknowledge that and are planning to do that kind of work. So everything is on your side. If you're working with a school district that puts up their hands and say the walls are up, the gate is closed, you do your thing after we're done with our kids and we'll do our thing while they're with us. That is not the correct approach. The correct approach is to work together, to work jointly, to make the best use of the time so that the kids can accelerate. Actually, acceleration suggests that additional time on learning is needed in order for the kids to be able to catch up. So I'm glad that we have this panel. I'm glad that we have this opportunity. And I'm glad that we are going to be working together jointly to make sure that after-school programs, community-based programs, and what happens in school during the daytime come together in the best interest of our kids. So with that, let me bring out Brian Jaffe with our staff at AASA, who will be moderating this first panel. Brian?
Thank you, Dan. And thank you to all of the 400 of you now that are on this webinar with us. We're so excited that there's such interest in this important topic and that we can be together. I'm privileged to be able to ask a few questions of two great education leaders from Savannah-Chatham County Public School System, Drs. Ann Levette and Valerie Cave. I want to start with Superintendent Levette responding to what we've just seen, what we've just heard from those young people and from Dan and Jody as well, and ask a question to you, which is, what does Savannah-Chatham County leadership, yourself in particular as superintendent, see the role of this coming summer after school in helping to respond, reinvent, and recover for our young people?
Well, thank you, Brian, for the question, and thanks to all of our colleagues who are on this afternoon. It's an important topic, and we are delighted to share our story. What is easy for us in this period is to continue to rely on our partnerships. We had really strong partnerships before the pandemic, and the pandemic allowed us to draw on them as well during that time period. And of course, as we are starting to move forward to the next school year, it gives us an opportunity to partner. We have partnerships in almost every area, strong partnerships with business, strong partnerships with healthcare, strong partnerships, of course, with other educational agencies, and specifically strong partnerships with the arts that we've seen work with us throughout the pandemic. What's exciting about this summer and for the next school year and next summer is that we will continue those partnerships, probably on steroids, really, that we have seen the impact of their involvement with us before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and as we start to plan for next year. They are excited about their opportunity to continue to work with us and to work with our children, because frankly, we all serve the same children. We all serve the same families. So for us, it's easy. It's important to encourage other communities to do the same.
Thank you, Ann. And I think we've learned even a more stark contrast this year that those students and families we serve have so many needs outside of just their academic acceleration. So Valerie, in Savannah, the model is called Embrace. Can you tell me a little bit about the meaning behind that word and the model you all have built in Savannah? And Chandler, you can pull up a couple slides to help Valerie talk us through this exciting practice in Savannah.
I can, Brian. Thank you so very much for the opportunity. In Savannah, we're offering an extended learning opportunity, which is our response to our pandemic learning loss. And we're calling our response Embrace. Embrace is about an instructional framework that addresses the needs of the whole child. It's about that academic and those social factors that influence schools as well as our children. So our experiences provide a variety of experiences. We are addressing learning styles. We're addressing children that have rates of completing tasks. We're tapping into their interests as well as their transitions. So we have several strategic focus. Readiness, where we're allowing the children to come in for academic recovery in grades K through 12. We're working on acceleration so that we can close some of those gaps, but giving those children the opportunities to make sure they're prepared for the next grade level. And then that initial credit as well as that credit acquisition for our high school learners as well as enrichment opportunities through a variety of camps. So we're tapping into the whole child and making sure that we address all of the SEL needs, those social emotional factors that they have had to experience all of those experiences since they have been out of school due to the pandemic. We're moving on to address the number of children that already are registered. We have 7,888 students that are registered for the summer sessions. We have 2 summer sessions. We have before care and after care. We also have 29 different summer learning sites going on in our buildings. We have tapped into before and after care with some of our varied organizations. We also, our summer sessions are about 15 days each. And currently we have 1,233 sessions of learning opportunities that are provided to our students with a variety of learning experiences. And we have small class sizes going on as well. So we have teachers, we have paras, we have nurses, we have counselors, we have social workers. We even have 100 student workers that are coming in to be able to oversee some of the camps that you see provided here. 21st Century Learning Center camps. We have Massey, which is our historic preservation camps that our children can experience. We have arts camps, architecture. We have culinary, lacrosse, sports camps. We have specialized learning camps going on. All of our CTAE camps, our college and career readiness, culinary, robotics, engineering, just you name it. We have a smorgasbord of learning for our students, and we're ready to open our doors and welcome all of our students in this summer.
Thank you, Valerie. And we're going to come back to you to hear some more about some of those partners that you all have. And when we talk about the need for school leaders in particular to think more broadly, to engage more partners, and to really be more flexible, more adaptable as we've had to be during this last year, what advice do you have for the school leaders, and what advice do you have for after-school partners and community-based organizations as we try to build and strengthen these partnerships on behalf of young people?
I think thank you, Brian. I think it's a great question, just based on some of the comments in the chat already. I mean, it's really easy to think about we can do it all ourselves, but frankly, I will tell you that the teachers that we meet with say, I'm tired. Like, I don't want to do anything for the summer except for my own children. But we have wonderful partners in our community who are into youth development. That's their bailiwick, and they are experts in that area. We trust them. We trust them during the year. So why not trust them this summer? This summer, they, like us, are interested in helping children recover and helping children re-socialize. It is important for all of us to be working in that direction. It's also been an opportunity for us to think about how to use those dollars to support those organizations that we know are also interested in youth development. So I say to any school leader, don't only depend on your own staff, because they may be at the point of exhaustion. So think about those who are in our community who have demonstrated their commitment, their expertise. Tap into them and allow them to become fully engaged. I would also say to other school leaders, don't think just about the summer, think about the school year as well. Those dollars are there, it's unprecedented, and we want to support those organizations that also support our children.
Thank you, Ann. I'm going to come back to you for one more question before we show the great video. But first, Valerie, I'm sure you've read a few of the people in the chat here. We've got some great partners like the Y, like Boys and Girls Club, Girl Scouts, all kinds of universities, and so many great people all across this country that are working on behalf of youth and children. Would you like to call out a couple of the partners in Savannah that you all are working with and are excited to partner with as we think about this powerful partnerships webinar?
I most certainly would. We have some great community partners. We have Loop It Up Savannah. We have our health organizations that work with us on a daily basis that are coming in to provide services like Curtis V. Cooper. We also have our college and university partners, Savannah State, Savannah Technical College, Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech. We have a Boys and Girls Club, as well as our Parks and Recreation. So we just have a number of partners that come in and provide support for us, and we're very appreciative. We cannot do it alone. We have to have them to help us move along.
Thank you, Dr. Cape. In just a moment, we're going to show you a wonderful video about the Embrace program in Savannah to close our section before we get to our next panel. But before that, Ann, I'd like to come to you for just a comment. We've had such a a difficult year, such a challenging year, but I'd love for you to give me one thing you're feeling good about, positive about, excited about as we head into this summer and next school year, which we hope will be a summer and a fall filled with more embraces than we were able to have this year. So give me something you're excited about and on a positive note as we think about this upcoming stretch for our young people.
Well, as you know, I'm always excited, but I'm particularly excited about us being able to demonstrate the power of partnerships to support our children and families. It is so critical that we come out of those silos. And in Savannah, we don't work in silos. We find it very useful to engage our partners. We also know that they are very willing to support us. We come together, we align our goals, our objectives, we establish our processes so that we make sure that we also open up that field for everyone. We serve 37,600 students today. We can't serve them all by ourselves, but we have some great willing partners, especially those who hung in there with us in our instructional pods and in our community during the pandemic. We all made it through. We're a year later and a year stronger, and it's only because we collaborated during this time. So I'm excited to see all our babies and hug them and embrace them this summer.
Thank you to Dr. Levette, to Dr. Cave, and to all the good folks in Savannah making it work. I'd love for you to watch this short video about Embrace, and thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Embrace is about an opportunity. When we designed Embrace, we thought about hugs and warmth and support. And we're going to be hugging our children and embracing them by providing them with readiness skills through acceleration, enrichment, and credit recovery.
We are excited about this year's program offering so much to our students. Instruction and enrichment opportunities this summer are going to take place throughout the county at over 27 locations. We have before and after care. Students can come and have meals with us to include the lunch meal. Even if they're not going to stay for the full day, they can still have lunch either when they come to campus or before they leave campus. Supplies are provided for students and there is no cost at all. This is an opportunity for all of our youth to engage and become involved and get ready for next year.
Embrace is important because schools exist for children. The primary reason that schools were built, the foundation of which our country was built, it's because we are to produce productive citizens for this world. And the way to do that is to make sure that all of our children, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of where they grow up, regardless of how they grow up, that they get what they need. And that's why summer learning this summer is so important, because we're embracing every aspect of what children need to be successful.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Cave and Dr. Levette, for sharing your story. I'm extremely energized, a little overwhelmed, but extremely energized by your program. My name is Kristen Knapsiger, and I'm the director of the Comprehensive Center, other side, Region 14 Comprehensive Center, as part of the federally funded Technical Assistance Network. And I'm also a board member for a long time of the Texas Partnership for Out of School Time, which is our statewide network. I'd love to introduce my panel, starting off with Mike McCormick. Mike is the current superintendent of Valverde Unified School District in California. I'm also welcoming Suzette Harvey, who is the president and CEO of Prime Time in Palm Beach, Florida, and Katie Landis, who is the director of the Georgia Statewide After School Network. So our first goal for our panel is to really talk about what are the realities of the partnerships, and to share sort of long-term things that are going to make partnerships work for the long term. And I'll get quick started with the partnership I just learned about. So as a part of the federally funded Technical Assistance Network, I got to facilitate a panel for the U.S. Department of Education Summer Collaborative recently. And it was featuring Cincinnati Public Schools and how the school district is centralizing, identifying, and vetting community partners, and then making available to schools a menu of partners that schools can confidently choose from in order to supplement what they're doing and really meet the needs, the special needs of their local students and families in their communities. And so that was one example I was really interested to learn about. And I would welcome my panelists to share some examples of some powerful partnerships that you're seeing, especially right now in this time. Katie, I'll go to you first.
Great, thanks, Kristen. So at the Georgia Statewide After School Network, we are busy tracking and working with school districts across the state, but tracking to see what they're doing right now in specific. So two examples, we just heard from Savannah, but two other great examples in Georgia that I'll quickly lift up is one is in Muskogee County. So Columbus, Georgia, they have had great partnerships as they think about their summer programs and beyond, where the way that theirs is working is that they're doing their summer program with the district in the school buildings in the morning, but then they are providing free transportation for all students to community-based programs in the afternoon. And then they're also working with those community providers to use some of their stimulus dollars to help fund their programs so they can continue to serve more kids across their community. And another example that's similar, but a little bit different how they're doing it is in Clayton County, Georgia. So in the metro Atlanta area, where they are similar to what you hear around Savannah, having all that enrichment embedded into all of the learning that they have throughout the summer. And they're really focusing on STEM, a lot of STEM camps that they're doing, but they are reached out again to a lot of their community-based partners. But instead of busing the kids out to those programs, they are bringing those community providers into their school buildings. And again, leveraging a lot of their stimulus dollars to be able to bring those community partners in and to offer those enrichment services that complement the academic acceleration that they're already doing. So those are two great examples that we've been excited about.
That's great, super practical, paying for transportation. Mike, why don't you share one of your partnerships?
Yeah, thank you. We've had a longstanding partnership with Think Together, and it's probably about 10 years worth. And so right now they're doing learning hubs in the district for us, which are actually located inside the regular school day, but then we also offer extended learning, and we're looking forward to summer programming with them as well. And one of the things that's been so powerful us is just the deep collaboration where we're really working with kind of the key performance indicators that we're thinking about. And it may not be those traditional types of performance indicators that people would first have come to mind. It's more around social emotional learning, supporting the whole child. I believe that, the power of one ally or one mentor having an influence on our students is significant. And I think we tend to forget that, regular school day is pretty highly structured, and that creates anxiety for our students. And so the extended learning spaces, I think, afford a different atmosphere for students to come into and maybe discover things about themselves through, various activities that are being offered in the extended or after school learning space. We focus together on a STEAM curriculum, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, doing lots of things in the space of arts and physical activity. And it just reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Sir Ken Robinson. When students get good at one thing, they tend to get better at everything else. And so rather than just hammering the kids with intervention after intervention after intervention, I really think there's tremendous power in giving kids an opportunity to do enrichment type activities, find out what their passion is. And again, once they get good at one thing, build confidence, they tend to get better at everything else, which ultimately really supports the district.
I love what you said, because that exactly ties back to the very first video that we heard, which was hearing from students themselves how meaningful these opportunities that we can create as adults for them are. Suzette, what's going on in Florida?
So pleased to say that Primetime Palm Beach County is in our 20th year of service to the after-school community. And so we have developed successful partnerships over the 2 decades, to the point now where annually we would serve over 200 after-school programs. And pre-COVID, we had 30,000 children take advantage of our of our activities that Mike was talking about. We have 23 partners who go into the schools and into other community-based programs and provide the robotics, the STEAM, the arts, entrepreneurship, all of these activities for children to take part in, as well as we have created both informal and formal career paths for our practitioner community so they can get certificates and they can get degrees to really shore up their work in youth development. And that has been our work for the last couple of decades, even through this pandemic. We were very concerned about the losses for our community with the people losing their jobs, but we still were able to serve 22,000 students this past year, as well as almost 800 practitioners through PD. So we continue to have very strong partnerships in our neck of the woods.
That's great. So we also want to kind of talk about, and I see a lot of community partners, community partner organizations, community-based organizations all introducing themselves in the chat. And I see many questions about how do community partners, let districts know that they're available or interested in helping, and what have you all learned in your years of developing and fostering these partnerships that make these partnerships between school districts and community-based organizations successful? I'll go to you, Mike, first, being a district lead.
Yeah, I think there's multiple avenues. I mean, certainly working with the, building level principals can be a good entry point. I think the education services staff up through to the superintendent and even to the board members, because the board members are elected to represent the community. And I think we're all working towards the same thing. We all have as our top goal in mind to raise up, successful students. And I think that, for the school districts that may be hard to get into, like they've got the sandbags piled high and they want to control every aspect of this, I would just suggest that, there's no I in team. And I think that this deep level collaboration and realizing that there's room at the table for multiple enthusiastic, energetic, community-based organizations to work very much in concert with schools. And I would say to the schools, look, it's very difficult to do this work all by ourselves and within the structures of the school day. And so I think that I would really highly encourage any of my superintendent colleagues to just be open to the idea. I think of it like this: kids are learning all the time. They may not be learning what we value as a school district, but they are learning all the time. They're always pursuing some sort of new knowledge. And as I mentioned earlier, I think some of the, and I don't mean this to sound negative at all, I actually mean it to be a positive, but I think some of the less structured academic learning spaces are actually spaces for our kids to relax a little bit, bring down that affective filter. And, we kind of have a concept here. It's like drop in and geek out, whether it's learning something about audio engineering or robotics or exploring dance movements or, spoken word, all those kinds of things kids can grab a hold to a passion for. And I think it contributes to our students' overall sense of well-being. And I really think we're at a time where it's important to broaden our definition of student success. Students are more than a math score. They're more than an English score. And let's focus on serving the whole child.
That's great. And again, I'd go back to what we heard from the students themselves. My after school folks want me to be happy. They want me to be myself and pursue things that I'm interested in, and all of which can complement academics. Let's go to Katie, and why don't you talk about how, as you're representing the Georgia Statewide After School Network, you're looking at districts and you're looking at community partnerships. Why don't you tell me tell the whole audience about how you're seeing this get started, or how you're seeing it work most successfully?
Some of the ways when we see it be most successful is when we really are being true and honest around what a partnership means and what that can be. It's not sometimes just quite honestly, it's not just a contract. It's not just, okay, we do this and you do that, but it's the really coming together to see how we can leverage all the different assets that these different sectors, and not just schools and community-based partners, but who else do we need to bring into that? But really leveraging all those different assets. I mean, in some of the spaces where we're seeing it be more successful is the real open conversation, as we just heard from superintendent, around talking about, well, okay, we have the staff, or we have the space, but we don't have workforce. We have workforce, and then how are we actually bringing that together? How are we thinking creatively to really meld those pieces? And then beyond even right now, some of the things that we just know are really important in these partnerships, for these partnerships to be really successful, is, so what I was just saying is some of that really open and clear dialogue from the beginning, really making sure we're sharing these conversations and that all different partners are brought into these conversations from the beginning, rather than here's our plan, how do you fit in, but how do we build this plan together? And from that note, also in that partnership piece, data is a big piece. How can we be thinking about data sharing? How can we make sure that we know the community-based programs know what the schools need and know what the young people need? How, if we have that shared data, there's so much more that those community-based partners that we just heard talked about what they can do in that more relaxed setting. Just because it's relaxed, I think we all know, but we're saying that it doesn't mean it's really intentional. It's not really intentional as well. But so how can they use that intentionality to build off of data that schools are able to provide to them? And I think the last thing I want to just share there is, as we're thinking about this summer and as we move forward, thinking about how are we making sure that all the young people who need opportunities for academic acceleration, for socio-emotional skill building, how are we looking collectively as communities as to making sure those kids are being served, rather than how many we are serving individually, but looking collectively and saying, okay, together with the schools, the YMCAs, the boys and girls, our smaller partners that are going to be different in each community, collectively, we provided opportunities for X number of young people. I think that can be the really powerful way we look at partnerships as a community as we think about this summer and beyond.
I think that's great. And I think you use the words trust and open conversations. And I know without relationships, there's no trust. Without trust, you're not getting outside partners into school buildings. And I also know that there's a lot of different turnover in leadership organizations in these different organizations. And so I'd love to hear, Suzette, you've been around for a long time, in your introduction, kind of talk to us about how these partnerships can get initiated, and then what's really critical for them weathering to be successful over time.
First, I would like to take my fellow panelists on a road show, because you talk about everything that we wish we could tell everyone and sing it from the groups about the importance of the partnership, particularly with the school district. They are our biggest clients, if you will. They run their own after-school program, so it's very important that we have a strong relationship with our district partners. And it didn't happen overnight. I think that we just have to acknowledge that these things take time. And for us, those relationships have been the most important element of being successful, particularly in times of crisis that we've experienced for the last year. We have spent, and I like what Mike talked about, going to the board. I would go and meet with individual board members, school board members, and just explain what it is that we do in the out-of-school time space, and that we really are complementary to the school day. We're not here to replace it, but to give those kids that space to really try new things, find avocations, find vocations. It is all about letting them grow and be the leaders that they can be. And youth development is a wonderful space for that. So it complements, it is a wonderful complement to what they do in the school day. But without that trust, I don't think we can really go far. And I said, we're 20 years in. It wasn't like that in the early years. It takes time. And you talk about data sharing agreements. That's really hard for community-based programs to get. If the district is not going to trust that you're going to use that data effectively or in a way that they believe is appropriate, it's going to be very hard. It took me a long time to get a data sharing agreement with the district. It just is. And I would encourage any community-based programs out there to stick with it, meet individual board members, meet individual principals, folks in the central office who value the work and see the work that you do. But it's also important to understand their point of view. I'm involved in the 4th year of an initiative from the Wallace Foundation on social emotional learning, looking at what happens from 7 to 7, a full campus day of how we can make lives of children better. When we started this, we went right to the outcomes. What do we need to do to fulfill this grant? Working together, we got into a room, but we realized we didn't speak the same language. We had to take time to both to understand, appreciate, have empathy and compassion for both our days. Teachers have a full day. They're busy, have a lot of pressure. After school practitioners also have a lot on their plates. So just taking the time to understand what is required for each of us to be successful in our own realms, and then seeing how we complement each other has been really important work for us as we move our partnership forward. And we didn't do that in the beginning. We just got into a room and said, let's hit the outcomes. We really had to spend time looking at those relationships, building that trust, because in the end, what do we all want? We want children to be successful in school and life. So we had the long range goal up there, and we kept going back to it whenever we sort of had misunderstandings on the way to get there. So in order to make these partnerships last, they take time, they take trust, but when you get them, it's well worth it. Particularly, I found that through this pandemic.
Right. So, Mike, I'd love for you to comment, because I know data is golden, right? And that's really where we're all trying to move the needle. But I know that things that we're all very interested in, like feelings of belongingness and feelings of agency and socio-emotional learning, are all things that are difficult to measure. And at the end of the day, superintendents and school principals are accountable for very real things in accountability systems. I wanted to give you just a couple minutes to kind of give us your perspective on how these community partnerships these organizations can approach the district and start those conversations that are data driven.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's one of those tough ones, right? Because, there's a certain liability associated with sharing data, but I think through a really good survey tool that we use, we make that data available to our partner. And it measures exactly those things that you talked about: school connectedness, agency. It asks the student questions like, do I feel welcome? Do I feel important? And it also gets at kind of executive function. Do I feel I'm able to solve my own problems? And then some of the other things that, we're all concerned with in terms of bullying. Have I been bullied today? Things like that. And so I will say that that's been a very powerful point for us. And, there's certain things that our after school and extended learning time partner can really dial in and focus more deeply on that. It's so important, but I think we kind of get myopic in that, we feel like our number one priority is academics. And we can't do everything, which kind of goes back to the overall theme I think that we're talking about here is, why not welcome some solid community-based organizations to come in and really assist and partner with the district on just this overall concept of student well-being. Because we know when students are in a good place emotionally and they feel supported, then more of their cognitive abilities are gonna shine through. And one of the things I will say, just in terms of data sharing, that has really been useful for us, and I don't know if this is unique to us or if there's other organizations that are partnering in the same way, but we have kind of a program leader that's at each one of our schools that's placed there by our partner, Think Together. And it's that coordinator type person who really interacts on a daily basis with the principal, and the teachers at the site to make sure they're coordinating their efforts on a daily basis. And it just really helps with the logistics, and it also helps to build that trust, keeps the communication channels open. And so that's been super powerful. I hope that's not just unique to our relationship. I hope that's happening in other places, because it's been so valuable for our students.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. I'd love to hear from Katie. Katie represents the Georgia After School statewide network, and I am here really bought into our Texas Partnership for Out of School Time. We are an organization that advocates for high quality after school and summer programs and tries to build that bridges between the district and all of the community-based providers. Katie, do you want to talk about how statewide networks are instrumental in supporting this?
Absolutely. Well, one of the main things first I will say, as a statewide after school network, if you are on here and you don't know your statewide after school network, get to know them. GSAN and TextPost, who you've heard Chris and I talk about, we are representing 2 of 50 statewide after school networks. So there is an after school network in every state. So if you don't know yours, find them, reach out. Because one of our main goals as a statewide after school network is really to set that table, to set the stage for partners to come together and work together. So in terms of this conversation and any others, we all welcome superintendents, education leaders, community-based organizations. I see a lot of conversation in the chat box about those small ones, whether you are big or small, anyone who is working in this space to reach out to join us so that we can help connect you to resources that are in your communities, in our states, but then we can also help to connect you to each other and have these part of these partnership building conversations. And so, Chris, and that is, I think, the big takeaway is just find your after school network and reach out. This is what we are here to help you with.
Absolutely. And I know in Texas also, we are helping build capacity of cities to form their own citywide networks that then support multiple school districts in an area. And so there's a lot of organizing going on, and I really appreciate that. So in our last few minutes about the practicalities, I know that there are a lot of resources to share. We've heard about these statewide after school networks, and that's definitely in the chat. Suzette, what practical advice would you give to reach out?
Well, I would also support what Katie said. I'm a board member of the Florida After School Network and love the work that we do. But for communities who have an after school intermediary, I think we serve as a great connector between school districts and funders. This is our primary role, is to convene the community, the after school community, provide resources, give information, support quality improvement, PD. This is our work. We have a national organization of just intermediaries called Every Hour Counts, and we have grown over the years. So if they're in your community, please reach out. We're here just to serve for that, as that connector for stakeholders in whatever community.
That's great. Mike, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think just following along with that and just keep knocking on the door. And I do think that there's value in the intermediaries, because they may be able to, more readily speak the language of the school district folks. And as Suzette explained, I think that's powerful to have that good listening ear and be able to coordinate and sit across from each other and have that direct conversation about sharing, any apprehension that you might have, and just getting that same vernacular down, that common sense of vocabulary. I think, it's easy to sit in an office and not respond to an email. It's much more difficult to say no when you actually get to know somebody. And we find out through that conversation that we actually share so much more than we thought we did. And that's where the passion for supporting students comes out. So I think that's a really great first step.
That's great. Katie, other ideas for sharing resources?
Well, I'll say 2 more things for the kind of those next steps real quickly. But again, just resources. I will say, go to your after school network. If they're not the resource, they can tell you where those resources are. But for the community partners who are on here today, One strategy that we've seen be successful is think about what other partners in your community that you can come together with as you're going to the school district. School districts, rightfully so, are overwhelmed right now. There's a lot going on. And as much as y'all can consolidate your work and be able to talk about what you can collectively do, if you don't have a prime time, if you don't have a local intermediary, what can you do? Who can you come together with in one conversation to really show the impact of your work? So consider that. And then the other side of it, I would, for our school partners on here today, I think we've heard this before, but I really want to encourage you to have that open mind and open conversation as we go into this. There may be programs who've been operating in your community who you've not partnered with in the past. And they may have been operating there for decades and have some really important and impactful work that they're doing on the ground in the communities. So be open to those conversations, learning what they're doing, because so many of them this past year have stepped up to do incredible work and meeting not just the young person's needs, but the family's needs during the pandemic. So find out what they've been doing. You may find some great partners there.
Great. So with that, I'll also just say the Comprehensive Center Network is really supporting the U.S. Department of Education's National Collaborative. The Comprehensive Center Network is dedicated towards serving the state education agencies. So a lot of where policies are made and a lot of resources that state agencies provide for districts. With that, I really want to thank my panelists. Thank you, Sukshet and Mike and Katie. And I will turn it over to Jody.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kristen. And thank you to all the panelists. That was just huge. I think we got so much information into such a short amount of time. And want to let everyone know we will save the chat room because there's a lot of information in the chat room that we will send to you. And we are, of course, recording this. So we will send that out to you as well. I wanted to personally thank, on behalf of all of us, the Mott Foundation for really making all of this possible. And I do want to shout out what you've been hearing, in the last few minutes, which is that for those of you that already have strong relationships, school districts and CBOs, this is a chance to make them stronger. For those of you that don't, it's a chance to build them. And it will last a lot longer than the next 3 years. And there's all sorts of resources to help you do that. We have a website called helpkidsrecover.org. It's the Afterschool Alliance and a bunch of other national providers. And that has all sorts of information on how do you contact each of the 50 state networks. If you have local intermediaries, we can help you connect to them too. It also has a wealth of information, and I want to give a shout out to the Wallace Foundation with actual evidence-based and research on summer learning and after school, so that you can have that data to make the argument too that we can help our kids learn. And I just want to repeat this because I thought it was so important, which is that we know kids are learning all the time and we can seize that. And if we broaden how we define student success, how we define what we think about as education and learning, we're going to be doing our kids a huge service, because we're also going to broaden how we can measure their success. And really, truly, I always think one of the things I love about these partnerships is 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2. It equals more than that, because when we start leveraging our school and our partnerships in our local communities, we can do so much more. So I thank you all. Please go to this website, and then I am gonna, I would love to hear Dan's advice to everyone and last words.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jody. And this great presentations, by the way, from our panelists. I particularly want to thank Superintendents McCormick and Levitt. They're certainly the kind of superintendents you want to be dealing with, right? Because they're the ones that are welcoming you and wanting you. And there's so many superintendents like that, and you have to take advantage of that. And by the way, now is a great opportunity, because what has happened this past year with the pandemic has really been a game changer. And we're going to see a very different approach to education than what we have seen in the past. And at AASA, for example, we just came out with a position paper that is advocating for a holistic approach to education. And it calls on school districts to collaborate, cooperate, to partner with their community organizations in order to do the job. And part of it is going to require really a cultural change. and you heard it several times, and you heard it from Superintendent McCormick as well, that there's too much emphasis in school districts on the academics, because primarily that's what we were told we were about. School districts were about teaching kids math, reading, arithmetic, and the other subject areas, okay? But what we've avoided in doing that, unfortunately, is to consider the social emotional needs of the children. And what we've seen this year is that fact that so many of our students are in need of that kind of holistic approach, the whole approach to the child. And superintendents, and I'm delighted when I hear some of them say to their staffs, when you get the kids back in school, the first thing you do is not to say, open the book to page 54. The first thing you should do is, how are you? How have you been doing? How's your family? What can I help you with? And then when you're taking care of those issues, then you can begin to focus on the academics. But the partnership with agencies like after-school programs and community-based agencies brings that factor into learning. It does provide that opportunity, does give the chance for this holistic approach. So this is a great time. Districts can't tell you they don't have the money. They're going to have more money than they know what to do with. So they'll have the money. And certainly the Department of Education, Secretary of Education is suggesting and very much recommending this collaborative effort. So this is a great opportunity to do that. I heard several times mention of the state networks. I want to acknowledge the Mott Foundation because they are very much responsible for supporting the 50 state networks. So that's an organization, an umbrella organization that's supporting at the state level organizations that you at the local level should know about and approach in helping you put together the programs that you need to put together. But what we heard today from our educators and from our community-based agencies, it was great. It's just a beautiful role model for how these things should work. And again, bottom line is, after all it's said and done, it's in the best interest of our kids. Our kids are going to be so much better because we're doing these things together. So thanks to all of you for joining us today. Thank you, Jody, for being part of this, and have a great summer. And if there's anything we can do, just give us a call. We're at aasa.org.